I think the more opportunities that we provide in our own spaces and the more opportunities that the younger generation and the current generation sees and like the representation that we're creating, it's like, oh, I can do that too, or I can start my own stuff, or I can.
You're like a little bit more like bold with it.
Yeah,
too. You got the Gen Zs, you got the next generation.
I said I got to say something, baby, hand me the mic. I said I got to say something, better hand me the mic. Well, can you handle it?
I think even with the growth of OBA, OSBA, Canada basketball, I think it starts from the top down, and I think with us now kind of like working all together to create more opportunities for the next generation or the current generation that's playing right now, and just all being in sync. I think the last 3 to 5 years have been really impactful for just like the entire basketball community, whether it's boys or girls. But even like obviously COVID happened 3 years, but the 2 years before, I think we were really trying, like getting to that peak of like, okay, women's basketball is on the map. Like, we won gold medals. Like, we were making an impact, and then obviously COVID happened. But I think we're now all in sync, and we're ready to like kind of like make that shift now.
Yeah, there's definitely been growing pains and the different teams popping up and leagues popping up and stuff. But I do think we're at a point where that piece of working together, I feel like that in and of itself is a bigger buzz. In the
I think so
community.
too. The synergy of everyone that's happening on the court, off the court.
And people want to work
visibility,
together.
exactly, yeah. Even I think social media, like the visibility of these players now, they're having highlight tapes, there's coaches that look like them, and now they're being advocates for something bigger than just basketball. I think like just the conversation around women's basketball has just heightened, I think, dramatically.
The branding around women's,
exactly,
like the fact that there's Nike shoots, Adidas shoots, make way opportunities, these type of things around shedding a spotlight. I feel like just that too.
I think my biggest thing is like I do want to shout out like you and Mike have been turning it around for Canada basketball, because that, like, I guess in the at least the competitive space of basketball in Canada for women and men, it's been kind of just like Canada basketball's here, grassroots is here, and there's
a huge gap in between.
It just and then there's but I think that there's been now people that are in those roles that are understanding like the history and then also trying to goal set, and I think that the community is now figuring it out, like, okay, like they want to work with us, we're bridging that gap, and you and Mike have been doing, and the team have been doing a phenomenal job of just like trying to create more opportunity, trying to bridge that gap of the past mistakes and things like that, and you guys have been doing a great job, honestly. So
thank you. No, I think that Canada basketball, if I'm speaking on like a national level and from like that like a high performance standpoint, I think what we recognize is that we don't own basketball. Like, no, we don't own it, but basketball belongs to everybody. So how are we helping groups like Layup and Hoop Queens and Giving Grow? Like, how are we giving you some of that power to actually, create a space for basketball bigger than all of us? Like, we're all the sum of our parts, right? So I think we're not basketball in Canada, we are Canada basketball. So basketball in Canada is very different. And I think just generally speaking from like a brand standpoint for basketball in Canada, 2019, the Raptors win a championship that changes everything. I think, you saw people like Drake say Toronto needs a team. So there's a lot of, if you're thinking about not grassroots, but like bigger picture, people who are like putting a spotlight on this country from a from a women's basketball standpoint, I think it's really important. And then also too, you talked about it with like Nike and all the shoots and campaigns that are happening. Like, I see it from a consumer standpoint, right? Like, I see, like, when we made these shirts, we were like, let's see. Like, we were the first Canadian retailer to get a WNBA collab. We didn't know what it was going to be like, and people were buying the stuff not because they knew each of these players, but because they were like, it's part of something bigger than them and part of something that they believe in, bigger picture.
And I think that piece of belonging too is huge, because like I see that shirt and I may not know every player, but I feel like I belong in this with this community, right? And like having people who are doing it from like healthcare plants, your lens, right? And your lens, I think that draws in so many more people who might not be players, but who are a part of the culture and who are a part of this movement that we need everybody to kind of have hands in anyways. Even this space, like, this is so basketball. This is so dope. Like, the fact that, shout out to Me the North, Mallory, right? The fact that that's a whole thing is just, I think there needs to continue to be media and representation and opportunities for people to be able to step into basketball in whatever space that is within that culture.
I think the more opportunities that we provide in our own spaces and the more opportunities that the younger generation and the current generation sees and like the representation that we're creating, it's like, oh, I can do that too, or I can start my own stuff, or I can.
You're like a little bit more like bold with it.
Yeah,
too. You got the Gen Zs, you got the next generation. Like, I could do that, and then they do it. It's not just like this idea of, I think even maybe our generation of, should we? I don't know. There's a lot of back and forth. We need someone or something to give us that kind of push over the edge. But now that because we are the people in our own respective spaces, creating that representation and visibility, this next generation is kind of seeing like, not even doubting that they could do that, or they could be a part of it, or they could reach out to any one of us, and we're pretty accessible, I think, too, as well. So it's just, I think, the visibility and the access, just the combination of both of those things, and what we're doing in each of our respective kind of work in our fields, and it's just impacting so many more people.
It's bigger than all of us.
It's bigger than all of us.
And we don't even know how much impact we're actually impacting people, but it's bigger than all of us for sure.
I think we have to keep investing, we have to keep talking about it, we have to keep the conversation going. I feel like, what's the WNBA numbers last year was like 500% increase in viewership because they made it more accessible.
Exactly,
So I'm gonna watch it.
Obviously people are gonna watch it if you,
And like I was saying earlier, I saw when the opportunity's there, the girls come. So I think it's just continuing to.
I think the more collaborative we are as stakeholders, as more like we're leaders in this space and literally showing by doing, the more opportunities that we create, the better, I think.
I think too, just like people who are in positions of power in basketball need to hire women and women of color to ensure that they're looking out for the bigger picture, because if it remains the same and it's still white men who kind of holds the power of the future of the game, you're not going to get a lot of change. So
it'll be done through that lens.
Exactly.
Sure.
So I think that ensuring like that is a way to sustain it and to maintain the growth. So that way, obviously the people making the decisions are making the decisions because they have the lived experiences of being in those positions earlier. I think that's a big
just like
piece.
continuing to challenge, like you said, challenge the brands, challenging the guys at the top to continue investing in women and believing in what we have to offer. And I think, like even with the rise in, these EDI initiatives within every brand, this is very new, right? So equity, diversity, and inclusion is a new branch of almost every single big brand or company or whatever it is, that if we continue to challenge those branches, and a lot of people, I would say, even in our community and people we know are in those positions to make the change too. So I think because that's also such a new branch of kind of like how companies and businesses work, that we can continue to push them and challenge them to keep investing in all things women and all things women basketball.
Yeah. And I think the last piece, and you and I talk about it all the time, is encouraging and making sure that coaching staff and the infrastructure around basketball programs have women included in it, especially women of color. It's girls want to play, but if they don't feel like they are confident or they're not trusting the infrastructure around them, they're not going to play. And you guys do a great job of, obviously, your Sky High program and all the coaching process to how do you coach women, how do you coach young girls, right? So like, and then you're with Hoop Queens, like the work you're doing is so important, but and making sure that the people who are surrounding and supporting those young girls are women as well.
I think a big piece of it too is understanding that it is a long-term investment, and we talk about this with Layup and our Sky High program, is when a girl drops out of basketball in 8th grade, it's not because one bad thing happened, right? It's because the bad experiences outweighed the good, and I think that it's gonna take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years of really investing in women's basketball. And sometimes you might not see the return on your investment immediately, but I think the big companies, the big corporations need to continue to invest because it is going to take that longer term to reverse a lot of those effects and to create a new generation of girls and women who have good experiences in and around basketball.